we're going to talk about using induction to prove is inequality statements. So our example for this is going to be prove that for n greater than or equal to 2, 3 to the n is greater than 3n. Okay, this is what I want to prove. So just like all induction problems, you want to prove a base case. Our base case here is going to be 2 because we are specifically told that it's only for n greater than or equal to 2, which means the lowest value n can have is 2. So let's show it. Well, 3 squared is going to be 9. 3 times 2 is 6. 9 is greater than 6. We did it. We proved the base case. But then, now what we're going to do is we're going to assume that this is true, right? Assume for n greater than or equal to 2, 3 to the n is greater than 3n. And we want to prove that for n greater than or equal to 2, 3 to the n plus 1 is greater than 3 times n plus 1. And this is just equal to 3n plus 3. Now, normally what we do is we say, okay, let's find a way to get our assume statement into our prove statement. But this is a little weird because this is an inequality, not an equality, so I can't do like a straightforward substitution, okay? So what we're going to try to do here is something a little wacky. I'm going to say, let's look at just the left-hand side of this statement, okay? I have 3n plus 1. I'm going to write this as, in terms of my assume statement. So I'm going to write this as 3 times 3 to the n. And then I'm going to say, what do I know about this? Well, I know that 3 to the n is greater than 3 times n, according to what I'm assuming. So that means that this must be greater than 3 times 3n, right? So I've multiplied my assume statement by 3, or I've said, well, if 3n is greater than 3 to the n is greater than 3 times n, that means that 3 times 3 to the n must be greater than 3 times 3n. So right here, what I've done, and this is 9n, right, is I essentially have 3 quantities now, okay? So I have quantity A. Quantity A, we're going to say, is 3n plus 1. I'm just going to try to make this very clear. Quantity B is 9n, and quantity C is 3n plus 3, okay? I have assumed that quantity A is greater than quantity, oh, sorry, I have not assumed, never mind, that doesn't involve that. What I've done here, right, is I'm showing, I want to prove that quantity A is greater than quantity C, right? Now I know, given my assumption, that A is greater than B. So one way that I could prove that A is greater than C is if I showed that B is greater than C, right? Because if A is greater than B and B is greater than C, I don't know why there's a comma there, then A is greater than C, right? So with this transitive property, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, well, I'm going to replace my left-hand side with 9n. Because I already know that this is bigger than 9n, so it's fine for me to put this here and see if it's true. And if it is, I've proven my statement. Because if this is greater than this, then 3 to the n plus 1 must also be greater than it. So now my proof becomes instead 9n is greater than 3n plus 3. And this is, we can pretty easily show is true. So I subtract 3n from both sides, I get 6n is greater than 3, and then 2n is greater than 1. Is this statement true? Well, I'm proving this specifically for n greater than or equal to 2. So the lowest possible value my left side could have is 4, and 4 is most definitely greater than 1. So we're done. We did it. This proves, right here, this proves that B is greater than C. And up here, for my assumption, I already know that A is greater than B. So the conclusion that I can draw is that A is greater than C. And that's what I'm trying to show. Remember, A, B, and C being these things on the side over here. Okay, so that's kind of the trick for inequality. It's not the only way to do it, but it is a way that I like and I think is pretty simple once you practice it and kind of wrap your head around the transitive property and how we use it with inequalities. And this is the last video in proof by inductions with inequalities. So if you wanted to see how to prove sums, or you wanted to look at how to prove divisibility problems or recursive formulas, be sure to check out the other videos in the playlist that cover those topics.